I'm not coming back. I've met someone better and already moved your things to storage. That was the text. No greeting, no hesitation, just 2 lines, followed by a screenshot of a $118,000 transfer from our joint savings to her personal account. Dana always preferred screenshots to explanations. She said they cut the noise. At 11:42 p.m. on a Thursday night, she cut 15 years down to a transaction record and an emoji-free breakup. I stared at the message from the kitchen table, the mug in my hand still warm. There was no initial rush of anger, no broken plates, or shouted voicemails. Just silence, familiar, heavy silence, the kind that settles over a home that's been drifting toward this moment in slow increments. She was on day 4 of her girls' trip to Palm Springs. I had known this wasn't about juice cleanses and yoga since day 1. I finished the coffee, same ceramic mug I'd been using since we bought this condo. There was a faint chip near the rim, a result of her flinging it across the sink years ago during a fight we never finished. I looked at the chip now with detached curiosity, like a clue in someone else's story. Then I opened my laptop. The screen lit up to a login page Dana had never seen. A second email account. A second cloud. Drive. A second life, technically. Years ago, I'd started building a quiet firewall prompted by instinct, sustained by discipline. In my line of work, patterns matter. And Dana's pattern had always been subtraction, slowly removing respect, gratitude, warmth, until all that remained was a lifestyle she could post, and a man she no longer needed to tag. The email inbox showed what I expected: security alerts. Multiple attempts to change passwords on dormant accounts. Dana was being thorough. I'd give her that. I picked up my phone, typed 2 words in response, and hit send. Good luck. Then I called my brother. Remember that contingency plan we talked about? He answered on the first ring. Yeah, it's time. It didn't start with the text, not really. It started with the shoes. 3 pairs, all new, all expensive. She said they were for the studio, for branding shoots, for appearances, for matching the energy of her growth. But she never wore them around me. Not once. They lived in their boxes, lined up like museum pieces, vanishing only when she traveled. Then came the phone calls. Casual tones that cut to whispers when I entered the room. A quick, too bright smile. Studio stuff, you'd be bored. I didn't press, not then. I was cataloging. 15 years teaches you the rhythm of a person. When the pauses become too long, when their laughs shift half a register higher, when silences grow teeth. You don't need proof to know something's cracked. But I'm not just a husband. I'm a forensic accountant. I've built a career on quiet numbers and loud patterns, on finding the thread when others see only clutter. In courtrooms, I've made CEOs sweat by reconstructing years of transactions into one undeniable truth. But at home, I let it slide. Maybe out of loyalty, maybe denial, or maybe because it's easier to track other people's lies than confront your own erosion. Missed anniversaries, delayed responses, a dinner reservation she forgot we'd made. For my birthday, booked over with a wellness retreat that included candlelit dinners she never mentioned. When I'd ask how it went, her stories had gaps, glossy, convenient gaps. I noticed all of it and I said nothing. But silence doesn't equal blindness. My strength isn't confrontation, it's calibration. I don't shout, I prepare. So when she texted me from a hotel room in Palm Springs, announcing she'd emptied our savings and moved on, I didn't ask why. I already knew. She thought I was just spreadsheets and ledgers, but behind every decimal I track, there's a story. She forgot that, and soon she'd learn how detailed mine could be. I stared at the phone for a full minute, not in shock, not in grief, just to let the weight of it settle. Then I typed 2 words. Good luck, and I meant them, because she was going to need it. I deleted the thread and dialed my brother. Jason, I said, remember the protocol we discussed? There was no pause on his end. Yeah. You sure? She made the first move, I said. It's time for mine. We didn't talk long, we didn't need to. Jason and I had run enough corporate risk assessments together to know the value of having a contingency file. One that starts with, "If the worst happens," and ends with full digital lockdown. After I hung up, I walked back to the kitchen, poured the rest of my coffee into the sink and rinsed the mug. The silence in the condo wasn't unfamiliar. Dana had filled it with curated noise, not presence, for months. But this was different. This was intentional. I pulled the fireproof lockbox from behind the false panel in the hallway closet. Inside were originals of everything Dana had never cared to learn about. The operating agreements for the LLCs, the title to my father's cabin up north, a USB drive with encrypted backups of all financial activity from the last 7 years. Tucked it all into a small duffel bag and left the closet clean. No trace. Next was the safe in the bedroom, the one she knew about. I left it untouched. Let her feel like she still had access to something. She could dig through those papers as long as she wanted. Nothing in there would help her. By midnight, I was standing at the threshold of the front door, duffel slung over one shoulder. I didn't look back. She'd sent a message, and I'd responded. Now it was my turn to play the long game, the one I'd quietly mapped out years ago, just in case. Dana never asked questions, not the real kind anyway. She'd nod along when I mentioned closing a case, murmur a half-hearted, "That's great, honey," when I flagged fraud in a client's audit. But she never listened. Not really. She didn't want the details. She wanted the outcomes, a beach vacation, an upgraded SUV, the kind of home you walk through, not live in. Dana married security and treated it like a silent partner. I was the foundation. She was the facade. I remember the first time I tried to explain a forensic trace to her. I'd uncovered a laundering scheme buried under 6 layers of shell companies. She waved a hand and said, "You're brilliant, babe, but honestly, you could be making all of this up and I'd never know. Just tell me when the check clears." That should have told me everything, but I was still enamored with the way she lit up at restaurants, how she could fill a room with confidence and charm. She had presence. I had precision. Over the years, she made it clear she didn't understand what I did, and worse, didn't care to. As long as the cards worked and the vacations booked, everything else was background noise. She joked to friends that I was the numbers guy. Sometimes I wasn't even sure she remembered the name of my firm, but that detachment, it became strategy. She didn't ask questions, so she never knew how I moved our assets, how I shielded investments behind legal protections and trusts, how much of our wealth had slipped out of view and out of reach. So when she sent that text, when she drained our joint savings and thought she'd left me ruined, it wasn't just cruel. It was calculated, and she thought I wouldn't see coming. But the thing about numbers is they never forget, and neither do I. She never saw the value in my work. That was her first mistake. Planning her escape without understanding who she was married to, that was her last. By 7:15 the next day morning, I was in my office with a coffee and an open terminal. Dana was still asleep in a luxury resort, blissfully unaware that the second she touched that money, she crossed a wire she couldn't see. I built my firm on discretion and digital precision. Clients trusted me to find the holes in their walls before anyone else could walk through them. I designed financial firewalls not just for others, but for myself. Dana thought she'd executed a clean exit. She hadn't realized I'd coded the tripwire 5 years ago. I froze our joint accounts first. The $118,000 she transferred, already flagged. The compliance department at our bank received a pre-authenticated fraud alert complete with documentation. I'd prepared long before she ever typed in that routing number. They were just waiting for the signal. Next came the credit cards, joint lines revoked, individual cards suspended under fraud suspicion, a secondary alert triggered based on geographic inconsistency, a California charge during a yoga retreat with a Des Moines billing history. They'd shut her down before lunch. Then I moved to asset protection, property lockouts, deed encumbrances, a protective writ over 2 brokerage accounts she didn't even know existed. My attorney received the full packet, incident logs, bank audit trails, and transfer flags, all neatly indexed and time-stamped. She knew exactly what to do. By noon, Dana was broke. She just didn't know it yet. I sat back, watching the system cycle through alerts. Every account she touched from here would escalate scrutiny. Any attempt to transfer, spend, or refinance would be met with red tape. The digital equivalent of iron bars. The beauty of it was in the silence. There were no slammed doors, no shouted arguments. Just numbers. Cold, immutable, traceable numbers. She'd always dismissed my work as boring. Spreadsheets and ledgers. But numbers remember, and systems don't care how sincere your apology sounds when the funds vanish. Somewhere in Palm Springs, Dana probably tried to buy lunch and found her card declined. She'd assume a glitch. Maybe call the bank, maybe call me, but I wouldn't answer. Because revenge doesn't always look like rage. Sometimes it looks like a firewall quietly closing behind you. After freezing the accounts, I didn't celebrate. I calculated. Revenge is only elegant if it remains rooted in truth. So I opened my laptop and searched the name that had been hiding in plain sight for months. Trey Harmon. The man Dana left. Me.Instagram, perfect smile. Workout reels. Motivational quotes in all caps. A cardboard alpha male playing gym prophet to a crowd of wellness chasers. I started digging, not into the filtered world he projected, but into the records that mattered. It didn't take long. His business was bleeding. 3 credit cards maxed. A gym lease he couldn't afford. A line of credit opened 4 months ago using new fitness equipment as collateral. That wasn't the twist. The twist was the co-signer. Dana. Her signature sat beneath his on every major loan document. And not just as a co-owner, she'd claimed marital income, assets, and combined equity to help him secure better terms. Which meant the banks believed I backed this nonsense too. That wasn't just betrayal. That was exposure. She thought she was clever, that leaving during her girls' trip meant a clean split. But I saw now that she hadn't just left me for someone else. She'd leveraged my name, my stability, and my earnings to prop up a fantasy. And she didn't even tell him. Trey thought Dana was bringing assets to the table. She wasn't. She was gambling with chips that didn't belong to her. I leaned back, staring at the screen. It wasn't just emotional anymore. This was legal, financial, and dangerous. Dana thought I'd fold. She thought I'd play the hurt. Discarded husband. But I had contingency files, authenticated timestamp logs, notarized marital documents she never bothered to read. She bet our future on a man who didn't know the difference between a balance sheet and a bicep curl. And in doing so, she gave me everything I needed, not just to defend myself, but to dismantle what they built, one legal filing at a time. The gym looked like a showroom, steel fixtures, LED panels, scent diffusers pumping eucalyptus into the air. Young bodies moved through curated routines, all postures and poses, more image than effort. I walked past them untouched, folder in hand, past the mural of Trey Harmon mid-sprint with his slogan painted beneath. Push through limits, the D. Receptionist looked up. Can I help? He's expecting me, I said, calm and certain. She hesitated, then picked up the phone. Trey met me at the glass door to his office, smile dialed to full wattage. He extended a hand. Leonard, right? Dana mentioned you might. I didn't shake it, just stepped inside, closed the door. Glass walls, but soundproof. Perfect. I won't take much of your time, I said, placing the folder on his desk. This is everything Dana signed in your name, with my assets behind her signature. His smile twitched. Car lease, business expansion loan, 3 credit cards, and this. I tapped a single document. A $175,000 gym equipment loan, backed by marital equity she no longer controls. He opened the folder slowly. Read, flipped, blinked. I didn't know, he said. She didn't know either, I replied. But ignorance isn't a defense. He looked up, color draining from his face. The banks will be calling. Everything due within weeks, I said. They approved these based on our combined net worth. That net worth is no longer available. He sat down, suddenly smaller. So what now? Nothing from me, I said. Just wanted to make sure you understood what's coming. The lights overhead were bright. Too bright. He looked like a man under an X-ray, every flaw exposed. At the door, I paused. When Dana left, she took more than money. Photos, my father's watch. I want them back. Didn't argue. Outside, people were still posing, stretching, sweating for the camera. Inside, the glass hadn't cracked yet, but it would. 3 days after the accounts were locked, she showed up. Not a call, not a warning, just a presence. In the lobby, wearing a $200 zip-up yoga jacket and sunglasses balanced on her head like a crown. The receptionist buzzed me. "Your wife's here," she said. "She's insisting." I took my time walking down. I wanted her to wait. She spotted me the moment I turned the corner and smiled, as if we were old friends who'd had a minor misunderstanding. "Leonard," she said too loudly. "Thank God. We need to talk." She launched into a monologue before I could reply. Something about a glitch at the bank. A terrible mix-up. She'd been on a retreat with bad service and hadn't realized. Things had gone so sideways. The transfer, misentered, the text, dramatic language from a moment of confusion. I didn't say a word. Not at first. We stood in the reception area, her voice bouncing off marble and glass, my silence drawing attention from employees walking past. She dropped her voice when she realized I wasn't playing along. "Leonard, can we go somewhere private?" I looked at her. "That won't be necessary. You can direct all further communication to my attorney." Her face shifted, subtle at first, then her jaw tightened. "You're overreacting," she said through her teeth. "You always overreact." Back upstairs, I sat at my desk. 10 minutes later, an email from her lawyer hit my inbox. Demands, accusations, thinly veiled threats, everything from financial blackmail to vague allusions about irregularities in my business. I didn't respond to Dana. I forwarded the message to my legal team with a single sentence. Proceed as planned. No more conversation. No more performance. She'd made her move, and now so had I. By the following week, my attorney had pieced together a digital trail Dana never imagined could surface. Transaction logs, flagged transfers, deposit patterns. The kind of subtle theft that only mattered when someone actually noticed. I had noticed. Forensic tracking wasn't just my job. It was my language. I'd spent a decade teaching financial institutions how to spot exactly this kind of manipulation. And now, ironically, they were doing it for me. The first red flag came from the business account linked to Harmon Fitness LLC. Transfers, sometimes weekly, from our joint account. Sometimes $300, sometimes $2,500. All logged cleanly under consulting or wellness investment. The totals added up fast. 80,000, my attorney said, sliding a folder across the table. That's the number tied to your joint funds, all funneled into Trey's failing business. Dana's name appears on every transfer. She paused, and she forged your signature on at least 2 credit applications. I didn't say anything, just flipped through the pages. The evidence wasn't elegant. It was crude, but it was enough. "Are you ready for a criminal case?" she asked. "No," I said, "but I don't have to be." Later that afternoon, the bank's fraud division contacted us. Their internal compliance department had opened a file. Not because of my lawyer, because of protocol, misuse of marital assets, loan misrepresentation, unauthorized transfers. It was no longer about what I wanted. It had become institutional. The next day, Dana's lawyer called mine. Panicked. Apparently, Dana had tried to apply for another credit line and was denied due to the flagged accounts. She was confused. She wanted to talk. But this wasn't confusion. This was discovery, and it wasn't going away. I sat alone in my office, watching the light shift across the framed photo of my father on the bookshelf. He'd once told me, "The thing about leverage is it doesn't shout, it leans." Now it was leaning, and Dana was slipping. The room was beige and quiet, the kind of quiet that swallows every shuffle, every breath. I sat on one side of the table with my attorney. Across from me, Dana arrived 5 minutes late. She looked like someone running on fumes. Skin too pale, makeup too sharp. Designer blazer hanging awkwardly on tense shoulders. She didn't meet my eyes. Not at first. Her attorney spoke first, setting a thick folder between us. "My client is willing to be reasonable," he began, voice carefully measured, "in the interest of resolving this without escalation." My attorney didn't flinch. "Unfortunately," she replied, "escalation has already occurred. The bank has referred the fraud investigation to the district attorney's office. Multiple forged documents, unauthorized use of marital assets. They'll proceed with or without us." Dana finally looked up. I expected a flicker of anger, maybe some kind of plea. Instead, there was just confusion, like she hadn't fully understood the scale of the problem until now. I slid a second folder across the table. "This is the proposed settlement," I said. "You keep your business, your personal belongings, your car, you walk away without alimony, and you accept full financial liability for the debts incurred using my signature." Dana's lips parted. Her attorney reached for the folder. "If you sign today," my lawyer added, "Leonard is prepared to issue a written statement to the bank noting cooperation. That won't erase the charges, but it may affect how aggressively they pursue criminal prosecution." No one spoke for a while. Dana scanned the pages slowly, like she was looking for some clause that would absolve her, some paragraph that proved this was still salvageable. There wasn't one. She picked up the pen, and she signed. No tears. No apologies. Just the quiet scrawl of ink across paper that marked the final page of a 15-year chapter. No one said a word. Not after she signed. Not after she left. She didn't even look back. Some victories don't need confetti. Some just need silence. I bought a small craftsman-style house on the edge of downtown Des Moines. It wasn't flashy. No high-end fixtures, no rooftop deck, no imported tile Dana would have insisted on. Just weathered wood, original windows, and a porch that faced west. What it had was potential. A foundation that didn't flinch under pressure. Good bones. I moved in on a Tuesday. My brother Jason showed up that Saturday with a truck full of tools and a 12-pack. We spent the day measuring, leveling, mounting new kitchen cabinets. No talking about Dana, no unpacking the legal wreckage. Just the sound of drills, the creak of floorboards, the occasional shared look that said everything without needing words. We took a break around dusk. Jason sat on the steps, sweating through his shirt, sipping a beer. "You could have destroyed her," he said finally. "Dragged her through court. Got the house, the studio, everything." I nodded. "That would have made me her." He didn't argue. That night after he left, I sat on the porch alone, a glass of bourbon in hand, the cheap kind that burns a little. The street was quiet, kids in the distance, a dog barking 2 houses down. I watched the last light peel off the rooftops, leaving everything dipped in blue. I thought about the way Dana looked when she signed those papers. Not defeated exactly, just untethered, as if she'd mistaken the engine of our life for the paint on the hood. All gloss, no function. She had bet everything on charm and found it didn't convert to credit when the floor collapsed. And I had done what I was trained to do. Trace. The pattern. Follow the assets, cut off the exits, but here's the thing no one tells you. Revenge isn't fire. It's granite, heavy, unmoving, and cold. The work is in carrying it, until you don't need to anymore. I took one last sip, leaned back, and listened to the boards under my chair creak with old age and quiet permission. This house didn't care who I had been. It just waited to be lived in.